Good morning, and welcome to Day 4 of 250 Years of Freedom. Today we're covering 1778, Foreign Alliances. A morning glint of sun sparkled through the drops of water hanging from the tips of grass blades. The aroma of cooking meat wafted across a camp of reinvigorated men, hungry now for the battlefield. Suddenly a shout alerts the attention of a line of men focusing their gazes downrange. A steel blade held high as if from a maestro conducting a symphony whipped down with a cry. A chorus of lead and smoke erupted as flint springlocks struck steel hammers. The orders came in thick German, as the troops at Valley Forge had endured the winter and emerged having added a new member to their ranks. A rejected Prussian officer who had finally discovered a band in need of his skills. General Friedrich Wilhelm Baron von Steuben, embraced by Washington and given immediate rank of Inspector General, was here to turn this ragtag group into a formidable unit. With the thaw of spring, morale was improving as supplies were finally arriving, meat was back on the menu, and Baron von Steuben had been given direction to write America's War Handbook. His first inspection in February 1778 found a group of men in short supply of everything except spirit, which he claimed no European army could have held together in such circumstances. He set to work, forming drills and maneuvers, coordinating the entire Continental Army, and standardizing a single battle protocol. Until then, each state had their own methods. By June, the Army was ready to put the defeats of 1777 behind them and press their newfound skills on the British, who were moving from Philadelphia to New York. The formidable officer, Frenchman Marquis de Lafayette, encouraged Washington before the Battle of Monmouth with these words: "It would be disgraceful for the leaders and humiliating for the troops to allow the enemy to cross the Jerseys with impunity." The English were marching in a vulnerable 12-mile-long convoy, and the agile Americans wound up inflicting a heavy blow on the British at the Battle of Monmouth. The hero of the battle was not a man, but Mary Ludwig Hayes Macaulay, who earned the nickname Molly Pitcher for her efforts to bring pitchers of water to the famished men, and even took her husband's place at the cannon he was manning when he collapsed. Though a decisive victory was not achieved, the Battle of Monmouth demonstrated growing professionalism and competence among the Continentals. Furthermore, if not for a premature retreat from a General Charles Lee, who was suspected of sabotaging in favor of the English, the battle might have ended in victory. Lee was received from the Brits in prisoner exchange and was apparently promised leniency from the Brits following the inevitable defeat of the Americans should he prove useful. Washington, in a fury, stripped him from service and sought to have him court-martialed. The major shift of the war came from across the Atlantic, as France, taking note of America's survival against their common enemy England, pledged to join the effort. This came in no small part from Benjamin Franklin's diplomatic efforts, weaving his wit and wisdom in France. Franklin was also the instrumental contact sending Baron von Steuben to America from Europe. The Continentals, who had feared the cause for liberty could be snuffed out only a month after the Declaration, were now 2 years later going toe-to-toe with England, and British commander Lord Cornwallis was now sensing the squeeze, and Britain wasted no time declaring war upon France as thanks for their involvement in the Revolution. Despite the alliance, a difficult joint force objective early on between French forces at sea and American forces by land to take on the Brits in Rhode Island fell flat in August. The battle ended inconclusively, but the silver lining was that the Royal Navy was now losing command of the waters, with the Americans joining forces with as many as 63 French ships throughout the war. Washington saw in this alliance the fingerprint of Providence. He wrote that heaven itself had smiled upon our cause. Congress called for a day of thanksgiving and prayer. Starting in 1775, Congress would issue 16 spiritual proclamations over the course of the war. In 1777, Congress recommended a day of solemn thanksgiving and praise following a victory. In 1779, Congress declared a day of fasting, humility, and prayer, and at other times called for citizens to pray for repentance and divine protection. Our nation today would do well to remember this bedrock of faith that empowered us to face down giants. This story calls to mind another alliance, one forged not by treaty, but by decree. when Cyrus, king of Persia, allowed Israel to rebuild Jerusalem. He became an unexpected instrument in God's plan. The Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, that he made a proclamation. Ezra 1:1. Though he was supreme ruler over the conquered Israelites, whose homeland lay in ruins and temple destroyed, he was moved to not only permit them to return, but he himself helped fund the great task of rebuilding the house of the Lord. As God moved in the heart of a foreign king to aid his people, so he stirred in the councils of France to aid a fledgling nation of freedom seekers. Only he who sees the end from the beginning works through the decisions of men who do not yet realize they are part of a greater story. America learned that humility before God invites help from unexpected places. The farmers and blacksmiths of the Continental Army could not have engineered France's favor, yet heaven opened that door when the nation first turned to prayer at Valley Forge. Faith prepares the ground, obedience reaps the harvest. Washington reminded his troops that thanksgiving must follow every triumph, lest pride shut heaven's gate. We remember that allies are blessings, not guarantees, that true security rests in righteousness more than in treaties, and there is no gain on earth if the cost is losing your soul. The faithful never stand alone when they stand on the side of God. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. He directs it like a watercourse wherever he pleases. Proverbs 21:1. May the same guiding hand that joined Nations for Liberty guide us still, united in purpose, humble in spirit, and thankful for every friend. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in 1779.